I can't believe it's already Wednesday, and that means we're on to part 3 of our series. Make sure you check out parts 1 and 2 so that you can follow the team every step of the way from Monza to Singapore. Yesterday we followed the chassis and we saw it stripped down and checked over, ready so it could be painted. And Jonathan Cox, you've been in touch on Twitter and asked to see the paint shop here in Brackley, and that is exactly where we've been today with our composite paint technician, Carl.
So what we've done, first of all, we've weighed the chassis in to get the weight of it, then masked it up, stripped all the paint off it, then took it into the prep bay, sanded all the primer as much as we can off to keep the weight down, then filled in any defect areas, any areas that need filler, sanded that down, fine lined all our edges, and one of our painters is actually going to put some primer on it. Once the primer's on there, we'll then pull it back out into the prep bay, sand the primer down, and then it will go in for its final coats of paint. Start to finish, you're talking anywhere between 8 to 12 hours. The airbrushing itself usually takes around about 3 or 4 hours, and then obviously once your clear coat goes on, you've got sort of a 40-minute drying time, and then it's out, and then it's roughly about an hour to an hour and a half polishing time, depending on how many people are on it.
The chassis is a huge part of the puzzle, but of course there are thousands of parts that the team are working on between now and Singapore. And Raj, Dave, you've been in touch on Facebook asking to know more about the parts of the car. So I went and had a chat with our build supply manager, Tony, to see what he and his team have been working on. Tony, how many parts are you and the team turning around between now and Singapore?
There's around 5,000 parts per car. 3,000 are what we call life parts, which accumulate mileage at the events, and 2,000 are non-life parts. So we turn around probably 3,000 after every 2 events, and then the other 2,000 after every 3 events.
And how much tougher is it? Because you've got such a little amount of time to turn everything around from the Europeans to the flyaways.
Yeah, from this turnaround is probably one of our shortest turnaround times. It's quite close, but we practice it quite often, so I think we'll be okay.
Well, we've been following a wishbone today. Let's talk through that journey.
So the wishbone comes back on the race car, obviously, gets removed from the race car, goes into life stores department. From there, we bring it down to sub-assembly to get bearing checked, make sure the bearing's okay. If it's not okay, they replace the bearing. Goes from there up to T&D to get proof tested and checked. Then from there into UT scan to make sure there's no defaults inside the wishbone itself, not delammed or anything like that. Back to life stores, they put all the brake lines and electrical parts. Then it goes into composites. They bond on all the parts and fairings. Then up to electronics, check all the electrics, and then back to life stores who wish it to the car.
What a journey!
Yes.
And that's just one part. Oh my goodness, Tony, thank you so much for taking me on that journey, taking all of us on that journey.
That's no problem.
We've seen so many of the team members over the last few days, but we haven't seen Toto. And as Maria Eduarda Lima said, I want to see Toto. And here he is, Toto Wolff. So what does Monza to Singapore look like for you?
It's like any given week between 2 races. Normally I would come back on a Sunday night and then stay in the office as long as I can. But unfortunately, part of my job is traveling and going to Stuttgart, visiting the board, or having meetings, meeting sponsors, recruiting personnel, and all that takes me away from the office, unfortunately.
So in this particular period, where are you going to be when?
All over the year, I have around 250 hotel nights and almost 1,000 hours in airplanes. So it varies. This time it is Europe, and until the Thursday before Singapore, and some destinations in Germany, in Switzerland, in Austria, and in the UK.
Your diary management must be off the chart. How do you make sure you're in the right place at the right time?
Well, I'm lucky enough. If I were to need to manage my own diary, it would be chaos. But I have 3 fantastic ladies two in the UK and one in Vienna, that helped me to manage the diary and make it on time to the meetings.
Well, I think we need to go and have a word with one of them, and we'll be following you around the factory.
Hopefully she doesn't speak too bad about me.
It's all about the Christmas presents, Toto.
Exactly.
So Dee, you are one of Toto's 3 PAs. When it comes to his schedule, where do you even begin?
Well, so he's got Julia who works in Vienna. She very much looks after his sort of family bits and pieces. And then Julia here in the office travels around with Toto, so she'll keep his schedule together and get him where he needs to be. And then I'm here at the factory. I book all of his travels, so his flights, the hotels, and then, so it all goes into the schedule. We all have access to the calendar. So when he's here, he's in technical meetings, engineering meetings, so he's all over the place.
How do you manage the time difference? Because he's all over the world. So how do you make sure he's in the right place at the right time?
So what we do in the calendar, it's very much colour coded so that we can see straight away when he's travelling and sort of meetings that are attributed to different sort of areas. And we make sure everything is time zoned so that wherever he is, he can look straight away and he's automatically in that zone, so we haven't got an issue with, calendars not syncing properly and he's thinking he's back in UK time.
So during this time between Monza and Singapore, what's his diary looking like?
Well, pretty hectic actually. So he flew back in from Monza on Sunday evening. So he's been in the office most of this week, so he's here until tomorrow evening. He flies out for some meetings off-site on Thursday and then straight over to Stuttgart where there's a board meeting on Friday. Then he's at Nürburgring for the weekend, and then he's back to Frankfurt on Monday for an event, and then he's back in the office for 2 days, Tuesday and Wednesday, and then he flies to Zurich for a UBS event on Thursday, and then straight out to Singapore Thursday evening.
Oh my goodness, that is the most crazy travel schedule I've ever heard. I'll let you get back to managing his diary.
Thank you very much.
I think we're starting to get an idea of just how busy all the departments are at the factory between Monza to Singapore. And something to leave you with for part 3. While I was in the paint shop, I came across the engineering station. You might recognise it from the races. It's where Toto watches from, and it's getting a bit of a makeover before Singapore. I think there might be 1 or 2 dents.